Welcome to the Only Brother Sister podcast, built for teachers, by teachers, dumplings over flowers.
I'm the sister, Nicole.
And I'm the brother, Izzy.
And this podcast is here to take you on a backstage tour of our combined 50 years of experience teaching so that we can help you recognize and celebrate substance over appearance.
Or dumplings
over flowers.
Yeah. Well, Waterman, spin the wheel. Waterman, what do we got?
Afternoon cup.
The afternoon cup.
Meet me in the teacher's lounge. Tell them the story.
Well, funny enough, oddly enough, it's come full circle. I am not a coffee drinker any longer.
Right.
I'm a tea drinker after COVID. I got COVID in 2020. And
Weird. Wow.
Yeah, no.
I got it in 2018, actually.
That's crazy. Unconfirmed, but crazy. The coffee, it just didn't sit right with me, while I was sick. And then with it, I tried to just stay away from those caffeine headaches and stuff since I had detoxed off it during COVID and got into drinking peppermint tea. This
is our best story.
Not yet. I'm setting it up.
Okay.
Actually, at your, prompting from your doctor, one of your doctors, it was about peppermint tea, right?
Yep.
So got into that.
And the rest is history.
Yeah, but the odd piece of this, and it's going to sound like I'm making it up, but trust me, I'm not, is that I started drinking my first cup of coffee. I was not like a college coffee drinker guy.
Okay.
Was in the teacher's lounge in my first year teaching.
Really?
Yeah.
We have the same parents.
No, I know. And it was their obsession with such that maybe kept me away.
I'm sorry.
I hated the taste. I'm not saying I'd never tasted it. I mean, the first time that it actually mattered, right?
The first time it mattered to me was at our kitchen table.
No.
It was like, you're 13 now, or whatever I was,
No, they weren't pushing coffee on us.
No, but
at the same time,
I was so excited.
I like to be around the table when they were drinking their coffee. That was a big part of life.
As it is now with Afternoon Cup, for sure. That's why.
But first time was in the teacher's lounge. I thought it made
crazy.
I was 22 years old, first job, first assignment.
You thought it made you look 24?
Yeah, exactly. It was definitely a social, like when in Rome, and then you start saying things like, I need that afternoon cup, just get me to my prep period, 6th, 7th period after lunch. And there's probably a lot of truth to that. And there certainly was in my head, if not in my body.
There's nothing better to me than an afternoon cup, except like that evening cup and maybe the morning cup. No, the afternoon cup is the cup. Let's be real. That
smell and is the sense most directly connected to memory. And so when I smell the morning coffee, because I'm not
triggered,
I didn't put my head in the sand, it triggers. And when I smell the afternoon cup,
does it trigger you to think of me?
Yeah. Sometimes when you're with me.
Well, the afternoon cup is on the wheel because that's what we did. That's what we do. Although sometimes it's tea instead of coffee now. But the idea is that after working together all day in a school, coaching, working with different teachers.
Teaching as colleagues.
Right.
But
specifically you and I, we never worked in the same building as teachers.
No, but I had my coffee clutch teachers.
What?
I knew who was off.
You did this without me?
Yes.
That's all right. I had coffee with mom and dad.
Long before it's true, yeah. I'm going to have to talk to them. Good point. But long before, you were teaching, I was making my way through the biz. And I knew 7th period, Mr. Contest and Cliff would be in there.
Oh my gosh.
You're
going to make me start to cry.
Yeah, and the coolest people were the ones that had that, pot in their room or something.
That's not allowed.
Well, it was. Maybe it wasn't.
The best friends you ever had were the ones that walked in the morning and handed you your Dunkin'. Come on.
Yeah.
Is there a better friend?
Nope.
Is there a better comrade?
Let me tell you, the only better one is the one that doesn't ask, but knows your order.
Yeah, that's the friend.
That's the best friend.
That's the friend.
There are a lot of friends. I've had a lot of friends bring me a coffee. And I'll be like, did you put something in?
Packets,
a bag
of
packets. Exactly. Good friend. Good friend.
Okay friend.
Well-meaning friend. Great friend.
Misguided friend.
No packets.
No talking.
Done.
Or if it's on your desk.
Done. Well, let's put it to the test. How do I have my coffee when I have a coffee? If I ever did.
4 creams.
And?
3 Splendas.
Wow. All right. You're in.
How do I have mine? This might be a trick.
Like your men.
Almond milk.
Just kidding.
Full of almond milk.
Yeah, that's right. And sweet.
And not sweet.
No, you had regular, basically. You had three cream, although you do like the almond milk, and 2 sugar.
Oh my God. 4 milk, 1 sugar.
Ouch.
But that's only a Dunkin', and that's only New York City Dunkin'.
Sponsored by Dunkin' now?
We should be.
Did you hear me, Dunkin'?
I'm wearing the official
Waterman, get
Dunkin'
on the phone
colors.
with Dunkin'. No, you're not.
Mathified
Oh,
Dunkin'.
you are?
Yeah.
Dang.
You just need to be an orange.
I am not. All right. There it is. Anywho.
Well, afternoon cup is so much more than just that caffeine rush in the afternoon. Although we love the caffeine rush.
Sure.
Have you heard of the nappuccino?
I have not heard of the nappuccino.
Then you don't read our blog because I have blogged about it.
I tried to set you up with a softball here, like we're conversing about something new.
Nappuccino.
Actually, yeah.
Of course you have. Daniel Pink.
Remember
Daniel Pink.
that you talk about it.
It's his concept.
P.S. No, I did not read our blog.
Right. Here it is. It's fine. Nappuccino is this. We are so much more productive. Mm-hmm. Daniel Pink has done all the studies to prove it. When we take a nap midway through the day, you have your different chronotype.
Say Daniel Pink has done all the studies as if we all know who Daniel Pink is.
Well, get on our website or Google him because he's a fantastic researcher.
So far I've got to get on our own website, read our own blog.
You have a lot of homework to do, sir.
Dang it. All right, call to action.
No time
already.
for your afternoon cup.
Truth.
Anyway, we all have our different chronotype, which means that you're either an early bird, a late owl, or something else. Lark.
Ask Pink.
Lark. So, either you're really productive in the morning or you're really tired in the morning, blah, blah, blah. No matter what chronotype you are, which you should also find out by consulting with Daniel Pink and reading his book. No matter what chronotype you are, nappuccino is this. You're so much more productive in the middle of the day if you take a nap. You know that 2:00 wall, and I know since I've had COVID.
Hello. It's an all-day wall sometimes.
It's a 2:00 steamroller.
Yeah.
Not a, it's crazy. It's bad.
That's true. That's real.
So his idea is the nappuccino, where you make yourself a coffee, probably maybe not super hot. If you like it iced, even better. But you drink one as fast as you can.
So yeah, not super hot.
Not super hot. The idea is as fast as you can.
Yeah.
And then it takes you about, 5 minutes to fall asleep or so. Force yourself to fall asleep. Easier said than done, I feel like. But if you can, if you're at the wall, you're pretty much falling asleep. And then after 20, 25 minutes, the caffeine from a cup of coffee starts to kick in and it'll wake you up.
Nice.
So the perfect nap time is a 20-minute nap. You're refreshed, but not groggy or whatever. So the idea of the nappuccino is you drink the coffee down, you sleep for 20, and then you're up in the perfect amount of rest time.
So it reminds me of a time when my first year teaching was in the 6th grade that still had recess. Mm-hmm. And
you took a nice nappuccino?
Well, teachers are supposed to pick up their students from the recess field,
The fact that you're saying supposed to is making this a really good story.
Yeah. And they line them up, and you go to your spot, and, you do all the teacher stuff, and you make sure they're in line.
Do you have a whistle or something?
Blah, blah. No whistle
Clipboard.
Then. Foghorn. No, I'm just kidding. So just, blah, blah, they're on their point. All of a sudden, speaking of nappuccinos, one day, I'm awakened to the knocks at my classroom door, and these little
Ouch.
tiny urchins trying to jump to the window and look in and see what's going on. And I am fast asleep on my desk. Oh. Yeah.
Honestly, though, the
Great
desk nap. Oh, come on.
The DAP?
The afternoon sun coming in your window.
Oh, man.
Maybe a bee. Some white noise.
Sure. All the above. So my question is, how do I take a nap at school? I'm
well, we all
listening,
have our break
watching,
time.
Doing something to this podcast, and I'm sitting here saying,
that's the security of the nappuccino. We build in that,
we have accountability napper buddies?
That's a great idea.
I think so, too.
Would you like to be mine?
Maybe we can make an app. No. Maybe we can make an app.
A nap app?
A nap app. We'll call it a nap. Wait.
Waterman, get on that.
Yeah,
Make us an app.
Workshop that, Waterman. But how?
That's called your alarm.
No, I get it. So let's talk about options outside of an actual nap.
Whether it's a literal nap, right, that maybe you take during your lunch or whatever, or right after school when you get home, you take that nap and you can then be like mom or dad, or do your other side hustle because we don't make enough. Whatever it is, whether it's an actual nap or a cup of coffee with your brother, or if that's not possible for you, a colleague.
Right.
The idea and the point here really is that you need some time to reset your own mental health,
self-care,
and brain and, emotional well-being.
Yeah. Do you want to ask me one thing that I've done that I find to be incredibly resetting?
No, we're out of time. Thanks, everybody. What is one thing you do that you find to be incredibly resetting?
I didn't think of that until you asked.
Is it call me?
No. Are you feeling particularly vulnerable today?
Yes. Yes, I am. I'll be right back. I'm going to take a nappuccino.
Yeah. No, it's to leave the building. On purpose. Now, some environments, I've worked at schools where, you can sign yourself out. You're the teacher. You're the adult. And some schools
just go running from the building.
You can't. Actually, there was some principals that I worked for that did not allow such things, but they all allowed me to go to my car.
Sure.
And even if I took my little lunch, or mom packed me lunch, or however it happened,
right?
Just leaving for 15, 20, half hour, I literally would basically trick my brain, I guess, into thinking I was restarting the day or starting the day. So I ended up having basically 2 half days.
I think what you invented.
Really, what did I invent?
Back then was mindfulness. I think you're talking about mindfulness.
I can forget about Mr. Pink. I am the inventor of mindfulness.
How very dare you?
Why are you wearing a pink? How did this happen at the wheel? For real?
Call me, Dan.
Wow. The wheel.
Call me.
Found you today. Dunkin' Coffee. Pink. And Mr. Pink.
Somebody get me a T-Mobile phone and we're all set.
Dang, product placement all over this.
And if we have a special guest, it might be.
Wasn't Mr. Pink in who was it? Was that in no, maybe it's Get You Right. I don't know. Go on.
Anyway, I think what you're talking about is mindfulness. And I think even at the time, I didn't realize I was doing this either. And I probably, if I knew maybe some structures for mindfulness or some ways that I could actually consciously do this, it would have been really helpful. Right. But I used to leave my building as well. And I was very close to the ocean where I worked, which was such a nice place to be. So I would drive down to the dock or the ferry or whatever it was. And I would just kind of take a look for a minute, and drive back. Because it was like, what am I going to do? Or I would listen to music or, whatever. Just take myself outside of that environment.
Get out of the environment. And you know what? Here's the trick. Okay? Consistency.
That's not a trick.
Well, it could be.
Don't think you know what trick means.
All right. Here's what I found to be the most important part of this. Is that whether I was having a particularly good day or a particularly bad day, I would take my nap app and just separate, right? Because I wanted to give the same energy
Sure.
that I had first period as eighth period, and because we talk about the ebbs and flows of the students, and if you listened back or you want to listen back to a couple episodes before this one, I jokingly even mentioned teaching kids at different times of the day or after a certain class period, and they're a little stinky or they're a little tired or they're hopped up on chemically induced lunches or the lack thereof.
Where did you teach?
We'll talk about that.
Guantanamo Middle School.
Episode. That's for another day. But point being, teachers have to recognize that they also go through those same ebbs and flows.
Listen, we all get it. And I really want to try to avoid saying self-care because I feel like it's been so thrown around and overused, and a bath bomb and a cup of coffee coupon. If you're so lucky to get something like that.
Yeah.
That's not going to kind of solve all the ills of teaching.
And
it's certainly not going to be a replacement for really good support, resources, and training, which is what we talk about all the time.
Always.
But I mean, it is important to step outside of your situation, no matter what that situation is sometimes, and just have a reset, have an outlet, have a way to, and that's for us. I mean, obviously for us, it's been easier to do that together. We use the afternoon cup time as a time to vent, as a time to debrief, as a time to brainstorm.
Vent
as a
in a
time
closed circle. Little safety tip.
Oh, we're in a very, very close circle.
I know.
But the idea is that you're taking that time together or alone, preferably together with somebody who you trust and appreciate and can talk to step away and reset.
So here I am listening, and I'm a teacher who says, the biggest frustration
Welcome
that
aboard.
I have, thanks, is that when I do have those lunch or prep periods, something else is thrown at me. I have a parent meeting. I have to do grades. I have to. So when you talk about that in light of self-care, what would you advise if I'm that person saying that to you? And that's my reality.
That's a really common reality. And if you think about that in terms, I was asked a question, you were too. We were at a meeting recently and someone asked us, what do you think would get the most return if you focus on the choice of three things? If you really want to see
that's
growth
dumplings over flowers right there.
Return or whatever, would you do better to focus on putting your energy into your people?
So
as a teacher, like your students, your families.
Okay.
Your work, your grading, your planning, your whatever activities, or yourself. And that night that we heard that question, everybody said, "Oh, your people or yourself or whatever." And the guy said, "Well, it's all three." Right. So
spoiler.
So I don't know what that's going to do for anybody, but.
Well, no.
The best answer, he said, there's no wrong answers, but there sure is a best one. And it's yourself. I mean, it's putting the oxygen mask on yourself before helping others, right? Like the speech on the plane. You can't be all those things. I think also now we have such an awareness as a culture of what it means to give yourself some care and what that really means and what it really should look like and the importance of it to your mental health and to the kind of stability of these systems and structures around us. And that if you don't do that, this stuff is still going to go on. It's still going to be there.
Way. But and here's another caveat to that, because we saw this in pandemic teaching, and one of the results of that, and one of the promising practices, if you will, that we've brought forward in our work has been to utilize technology to streamline some of these processes and also create boundary, because we're creating other opportunities, meaning I feel very obligated as a teacher to attend to a parent's need, a student's need, but now with maybe a way to virtually connect with them at the time of my choosing, it's a lot different. It's a lot quicker. I can set the boundary of, I'm sorry, this is my lunchtime, even without saying it out loud. I can set that boundary up in my own mind prior, because I can offer a Calendly link with a bunch of times of their choosing where we can get on a Zoom call or a Google Meet. Not trying to leave anybody out here.
Powered by T-Mobile.
Yeah, or a Scenes, powered by Mosaic Construction Planning. And we can, create that atmosphere. It's an acceptable way, I hope. So I think one of the ways...
Yeah, I think that's what I mean about awareness. And parents are people.
What?
Guys, just so you know. And I think we all, in any working environment, corporate spaces, like everything is different now.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily blanket, like for the best or for the worse. It just is. Yeah. And so we have a chance to reshape those things and to set those healthy boundaries and to use other options.
Yep.
So maybe it's a space where questions live all the time. Maybe it's a dedicated office hour time for your parents. Maybe it's, whatever it might be. The practicalities of how you get to that place, however those work out, We have options, we have choices. But what's paramount is that we're thinking about ways to attend to yourself.
Yeah.
Yourself and your needs.
Yep.
That also includes professional learning, by the way.
Yeah.
Self-care is sometimes making sure that you're confident in what you're doing and what you're teaching. One of the ways that we like to give that confidence is through Mosaic Instructional Planning.
What is Mosaic Instructional Planning?
I'm so glad you asked me that again. It is created by us, our cloud-based lesson and unit planning software that gives teachers confidence. How does it give teachers confidence?
I was just going to ask.
Go ahead, ask it.
How does it give teachers confidence?
Well, by making sure that as a teacher, your most important work happens in your plan. You're giving kids, you're making intentional choices about what kids are doing, what they need to do that, and where they're going.
Just to cut you off.
Go ahead. I love being cut off.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but I did mean to cut you off. I was the type of student whose homework didn't get turned in and was in my backpack getting, torn apart over the days until the parent meeting came and they said, "You're not doing your homework." And the teacher said that, and my parents said, "Yes, he is. I see him every night doing his homework." And then I would pull it out of the backpack and they would all sit there and with this look and be like, "Why aren't you turning it in?"
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to say it then, but I know how to say it now. It's because I don't like to be wrong. And if I wasn't sure of myself, didn't have the confidence, I wouldn't turn it in. I'd rather fail myself than take the risk of being,
like KAT, I'm out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So in a sense, that is hugely important in teacher mentorship. It's like getting a chance to feel like you can bounce an idea off of someone, even if that someone exists asynchronously at this point. It's everything. It's everything to feel like I can, okay, you've seen this work, or this is a really good idea. I'll kind of either make it my own, or even I might mathify it. You never know.
But that's the confidence that's embedded in Mosaic.
Right.
That's
right.
all
really
I'm trying
important
to say. You didn't have to cut me off.
Well, no, but I wanted to.
Right.
So I did. All right, let's do some call to action. What kind
Waterman, brew a coffee.
Yeah.
I'm nappuccinoing.
Right away. So structure, right? Knowing, obviously we all have our schedule. I think one of the most important pieces is to consult with content leaders, team leaders, assistant principals, whoever it is that is a supervisory role to you, and ask directly about the ways that are acceptable to meet with parents, to conference with students, to talk about those times. If you can get parents to even through a Google form or some other way to indicate what their preferences are, and then have that as documentation. I think that's one of the important pieces. We can also talk about the ways in which schools are now doing using virtual tools to hold IEP meetings, 504 plan meetings, different meetings that would always take away my planning
So
time.
step one is to get your time.
Well, I think, but step one is to coordinate with administration, make sure that we're on the same page.
Coordinate with administration to set yourself up so that you can have the space and time.
Yes.
To have your afternoon cup, whether it's...
Whether your afternoon cup is an actual El Guapo or not. Then you can...
An El Guapo cup or a long talk with a friend or,
or a good cigar. You know what I'm saying? Well, that's for another episode, isn't it?
Right.
It's on the wheel. If not, get it on the wheel, Waterman.
It's on the wheel.
So whatever it is that you do to separate mentally.
Because otherwise, I'll go back to dumplings over flowers, as we are wont to do. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you may look like you're doing all these things and you have it all together, or you may look at someone else and say, "Oh, well, they don't need all this stuff, and they're fine, and they have, they can. How come they can balance all this stuff, and I can't even keep it together?" And I used to look at people before I had my own son who had kids when I didn't have kids and say, "Oh my God."
Yes.
And now you have to go home and be a parent. Not to mention lunatics who have 5 kids.
Like me?
Yeah.
Got it.
How do you do that? Now you're going to go home after this job and be this to 5 different personalities and go 5 different sports games and whatever. So, when we're comparing, first of all, ourselves to anybody else, that's always a terrible idea.
It makes an ass out of you and me.
It sure does.
Wait,
that is
that the right one?
The new saying.
Okay. I'm bringing it back.
Yeah.
Or I'm reinventing it.
I like it.
I love it.
Anyway, when you're comparing yourself to someone else, it's terrible. When you're comparing yourself to an unrealistic expectation of yourself.
There you go. How about when you're comparing yourself to yourself?
That's what I'm saying.
Right? So comparison, I know
is the
to be
thief of joy.
Yeah, the death of joy.
And when you're comparing yourself to someone else, of course, when you're comparing yourself to an unrealistic vision or expectation that you hold of yourself, that's really, hard to get out of. So we don't want that. That is all flour, no dumpling.
Yeah.
The substance is going to come from treating yourself like you matter. Taking the advice you would give somebody else,
And one of those things is the impact of our words and our action in those moments on student behaviors. And I don't mean, positive behavior, negative behavior in terms of like discipline. I'm looking at it in terms of their behaviors. We are their model as teachers in front of the room, and to allow anything to make last period of the day feel any less important than first period of the day, it will show up and it will impact and affect student outcomes, student behaviors, the way they approach things. We are in the position of modeling a positive way to do that. In fact, I would do that with my own students in terms of test taking. I try to reframe the test to get over some of those anxieties and talk about self-care with them in the sense of saying, this is not 20 question test. It's a series of 21 question assignments, just chunk it out or break it down. And we would do we would do what's called the longest minute. The longest minute was literally stopping and watching a clock for a minute. And you have no idea how long that feels.
I do.
Until you do that very thing.
Yep.
And the kids would be like, oh my goodness, this, of course, one would start, I can't do this, say something out loud, try to be funny, and it was all good. But that 1 minute. And so I would encourage them and say, look, if you're stop for 1 minute and restart the next question, you're going to feel like you're just starting over. Like it's
like you took a nappuccino.
Like you took a nappuccino.
So maybe that's a nice call to action. Take 1 minute, look at the clock and think about that minute.
Yeah.
Feel that. Start with 1 minute.
Well,
but just get started.
You want to do it right now? That makes for a great podcast, huh? So dead air, right? Could you imagine? But isn't it funny that, your watch now, I travel a lot and I'm usually on the plane and it'll say, take 1 minute to breathe. And I'm like,
and you're like, oh, no, I can't.
No, I'm more like, my first thought is, I've been breathing. But the second thought is, that's so long. And then the third thought is, but you probably need it right now because you're mad at your watch. But then also the idea of that, movement, changing positions, stand up, like all
leave the building
things.
If you can. Yep.
Yeah. Even just changing atmosphere and resetting. And here's another good one. If I was throwing out some tips. And I would just call them commercial breaks, and I would just do that with the students during class. And we'd be in some intense piece of a lesson, or maybe a non-intense piece of a lesson. It didn't matter. And I used to jokingly say, listen, you're not allowed to take me off task, but I think it's important for me to take you off task right now. Let's just take a breath. Somebody tell me what you did last night. And maybe a minute. And that's hard because every kid, there's a ton of them. I was a middle school teacher primarily, and they all want to tell you their story. But if you just narrow it down and say, Nicole, tell me what you did last night, and let's talk about it for a second, right? You're building relationship, you're building community, but intrinsically you're building also that sense of pause. This is important, but it's not more important than doing it well. And that's why, again, we go back to those dumplings. So a dumpling moment, funny enough, is a pause.
Yeah, it's all the substance you need.
Right? And just kind of that reset allows you to build and bring substance, because quality far outweighs quantity in terms of educating students and getting students to do 100% of a few versus 20% of many. Right? It's depth over coverage. And in order to do that, we have to be prepared for that as the instructors and the educators, and then model that in front of the kids.
Nothing more important. And maybe pour them all a cup of coffee in the afternoon.
Interesting thought.
Afternoon cup.
And that's the afternoon cup.
Hey everybody, this is the unseen but ever-present Waterman. Thank you for listening to Dumplings Over Flowers. Our current plan is to have new episodes every other week, so be sure to subscribe to the show on YouTube or follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can find us on YouTube or on social by searching Dumplings Over Flowers or @DumplingsPod. That's @DumplingsPod. Also, don't be afraid to leave a comment on our YouTube channel. Your comments, questions, or stories may very well inspire the conversation in our next episode. If you would like to know more about our cloud-based lesson planning platform, you can visit mosaicip.com. Once again, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.